Hello, fifth graders. Today we are going to begin our brand new topic, and this topic deals with volume. And you may have heard of that word before, but today we're basically going to explore what volume is, and we're going to basically come up with a definition of what it is ourselves. So before we begin, I have these 4 words right here. And what we are going to do, you guys are going to brainstorm, what do you think these words mean? What are some things that come to your mind when you hear these words? So let's look at this first one, 3-dimensional, okay? What are some things that pop into your head right away when you hear the word 3-dimensional? Think about that. Record those in your notes. All words that make you think of 3-dimensional or remind you of what a 3-dimensional something is. Let's look at volume. Okay? What are some things that come to your mind when you think of volume? Okay? So let's go back to 3-dimensional. Hopefully you have some things in your notes. Again, these are not wrong. I just told you, what do you think? So I'm going to come up with, brainstorm some things that remind me of 3-dimensional. Well, when I think of 3-dimensional, I think of something that has multiple dimensions. Okay? Maybe something that pops out. Like when I think 3-dimensional, I think 3D. So like a 3D movie that pops out or something. Maybe 3-dimensional is like something you can touch. It's like physical, okay? It's 3D. And something that is physical, something that you can touch, you can hold, 3 dimensions, multiple dimensions, okay? So those are just some things that I think of when I think of 3-dimensional. Your ideas, I don't want you to really change your notes. You can add to it, but don't take away the things that you added that stand for 3-dimensional, because those, again, it's your observations, okay? So now let's think of volume. What are some things that come to your mind when you think of the word volume? Well, so record those in your notes. So when I think of volume, I think of something that takes up space. You may think of volume like sound, okay? That's another thing, like volume, like the sound of something, the level of what something could be. Another thing that reminds me of volume is like an amount, okay? Whether you're talking about sound, the amount of sound, or the amount of space something takes up. Those are just a few of my words that make me think of volume. You may think of some other things. What about cubic unit? What are some things that come to your mind or pop into your head when you think of the word cubic unit? Record those down. So cubic unit for me, well, it's a type of unit, okay? And probably made of cubes or something like that, okay? Cubic, okay, that stands for 3, okay? So maybe the word 3 comes to my mind, and that kind of brings me back to 3-dimensional, so maybe they're related, okay? And again, cubic unit, taking up space. In my mind, cubic units, like a unit takes up space. Okay, and this last word, capacity, okay? You may have heard of that before. When I think of capacity, I think of measurements. All right, and again, you may not have thought of these things. You have your own ideas as well. Measurements, such as quarts, liters, cups, those types of kitchen measurements, they all measure capacity. And when I think of capacity, I think of filling something up. Or when things say a full amount, oh, we're at max capacity. Okay? A lot of times you hear that, oh, we're not allowed to let anyone in. We're at max capacity, meaning that totally full. All right, so I wanted to talk about these 4 words, three-dimensional, volume, cubic, and capacity, because they all have to do with coming up with a volume definition, and they all have to do with volume. Okay, so what do you think volume has to deal with then? If we're talking about three-dimensional, cubic units, capacity. Volume basically means something that takes up space. It fills an area. And volume is three-dimensional. Volume is measured in cubic units. Volume takes up space, so it's capacity. All right? So we're going to be talking about how to find volume today. So this next one, what we are going to do, we are given little rectangular prisms that are made of cubes. And what we are going to do, and what you guys are going to do, you are going to guess how many cubes are in each prism, and then we are actually going to find out. So, prediction. All right, I want you to make a guess. How many in this first cube, how many tiny cubes do you think? Don't count, just guess. All right, and put that guess right here. Don't count, just guess. All right, once you have that guess, now I want you to find how many actual. Okay, so how many actual cubes are in this bigger cube? Well, let's see. If I'm going to figure this out, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in this front layer. And then how many total layers do we have? We have 1, 2, 3. So if there's 3 in the front layer, 9 in the front layer, 9 in the second layer, 9 in the third layer, 9 times 3. The actual amount is 18 cubes. Okay? And describe how you figured that out. You might have done it differently than I did. How did you figure out how many cubes there were? All right, so how I did it, I found how many there were in one layer and then multiplied by how many layers there were. All right, you could have also done it this way. This top layer has 9 right here, and then 1, 2, 3 layers that way, 9, 9, 9 again. And it's not 18, oh my goodness, I'm silly. It's 27. Sorry about that. I made a mistake. So what I want you to do, make a prediction and label it there. How many do you think? Don't count. Now, what I want you to do, I want you to figure out how many tiny cubes are in this rectangular prism. So figure that out. How many did you get? All right, and then describe how you figured that out. How did you figure that out? How many actual little tiny cubes are in this rectangular prism? Write that in your notes. So this is how I did it. I see in this top layer right here, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And if there's 9 in this top layer, there has to be also 9 in this layer. There's 9 in the top layer. There has to be 9 in this layer, and there's 9 in this layer. So if there's 3 layers of 9, 9 times 3 is 27. So there's 27 actual cubes. And you might have done that a different way. Okay, you might have figured that out some other way. But how I figured it out, and I would write it here, I figured it out by figuring out how many cubes are in one layer and then multiplying by how many layers there are. Sorry, my handwriting is messy. All right, so let's look at the next one. This cube right here. Again, don't count. Make a prediction. How many do you think are there? Now, once you made that prediction, make an actual count. How many tiny little cubes are in this rectangular prism? And write down, how did you figure it out? And record that in your notes. So let's look at this. This is how I would figure it out. Okay, again, I'm doing the same method that I did up here. I'm going to do this top layer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 in this top layer, meaning that the next layer has 8, and this next layer has 8. So 8 times 3 is 24. So there's 24 actual cubes in that. Let's look at 2 more examples. Again, make her prediction. Don't count, just make a prediction. And now, count how many are actually in there. So count how many are actually in there, record that in your notes, and then describe how you figured it out. So let's look at this. If I were to figure this out, same thing with my layers. I could do this top layer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So there's 20 in this top layer, meaning that the layer right underneath also has 20. 20 plus 20, or 20 times 2, is 40 cubes. So there's 40 cubes. Now, you don't have to do the top layer. You can do this. This side layer right here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers. 8 times 5 also gives you 40. So you can figure it out that way too. Okay? And this very last one. Again, make a prediction first. How many do you think are in that? It's not really a rectangular prism now. Now it's just a figure. Okay? So record that in your notes, your prediction. Now I want you to find how many are actually in this figure. So try to figure that out and then describe in your notes, how did you figure that out? So let's see. My actual, I can break this into 2 shapes like that. This is how I would do it. If you did it a different way and you got the same answer, that's okay. In this bottom figure, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cubes that we can see. Okay? And that makes sense because this is a layer and there's 3 layers. 2 times 3 is 6. So 6 in this one. And then in this figure, or rectangular prism over here, there's 4 in a layer times 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. So 4 times 4 is 16. And then what I can do with 16 and 6, I can add them together. So I would get 22. Okay, so the actual amount of cubes is 22. Now, you could have done this completely different. You could have just counted all the cubes that you can see. Okay, you could have broken it in a layer like this and done 8 plus another 8 here and gotten 16 that way. Okay, and then this one just has 6. But keep in mind, this is a cube. It's like these cubes are smushed together. Okay, so this was the start of our volume topic. Okay, and basically volume is made of these cubic units. Okay, and what we were doing today, we were just figuring out how many of these cubic units are in these figures. And what we did by counting those cubic units, we found the answer and we found the volume. Okay, and we're going to go more into what exactly volume is tomorrow, but this was just to kind of get you started and counting all these cubic units and seeing how many of these cubes fill up these figures. And in reality, we were just finding the volume of these figures. Okay, so today what I want you to do, you're going to get a couple more of these shapes, and you guys are going to find count how many cubic units are in each of these shapes. All right, so you're going to complete that. It is located in the Google Classroom. Again, if you need to break it into sections and count how many are in each layer, however, whatever works for you, as long as you are getting the correct actual amounts. All right, so take your time with that. If you do have any questions, please let me know, and have a wonderful day. Bye, guys.